Good morning and welcome to Everything Infrastructure. The Infrastructure Services Committee meeting of Thursday, April the 14th, 2022. The SCRD is in the territory of the Squamish and Sechelt First Nations. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any changes, additions, subtractions? Seeing none, a motion. Director Pratt.
Sorry to throw this in last minute, but I'm just wondering if we'd be able to get an update from our GM of infrastructure on any snowpack, or if we could just address that of when we would be, because I know with the community, as we're going into spring and everything, it might be just a nice little verbal if we could.
It will be part of item number 4.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Perfect. So, could I see a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Great, we have an agenda. Now a motion to receive all reports and communications. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Yay. All right, we're gonna get straight off with developing a water strategy, and I believe it's Ms. Edbrook this morning.
Great, thank you, Chair McMahon. This report responds to several strategies in the board strategic plan related to water supply and public engagement, particularly the tactic for developing water supply plans. To initiate this process, we're proposing to begin with an SCRD water strategy, which will be a public-facing document that outlines the direction for how the SCRD will provide safe and reliable water to the community. This would be a 10-page document. It would be a similar format to the board strategic plan that would clearly communicate what the SCRD plans to do over the next 5 years to increase long-term water security. And the discussion was developed with input from SCRD staff and the Water Supply Advisory Committee. And I'll just note that this is not the strategy itself. Rather, it outlines the proposed framework for developing the strategy, and it really is meant to serve as a jumping off point for discussions with stakeholders and with the public. So the report outlines the focus areas of the water strategy and the different proposed engagement approaches, and feedback received during engagement will inform the development of the draft water strategy and would be presented to the board by early 2023. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And do we have questions? Looking around, do people remember how to put up their electronic hands? It's been a few weeks since we've met. Director Seegers.
Thank you. A lot of work on here, very good work. Really appreciate this. It's really comprehensive. I'm looking at number 4, feedback and engagement process on page 12. And I'm just wondering if the verbiage could be changed somewhat. It kind of reads like an ad. Like this would be what we'd put out. And so is this the feedback and engagement process, or is the ad to advertise the feedback and engagement process? And both could be included.
So this is in the discussion paper. The discussion paper is a very public-facing document. It is meant, not everyone will read it, and we'll find different ways to disseminate this information. The mail-out itself would be a very simple postcard, but it is meant to be read by the public, and it does read like an ad in the way that we want people to be invited in to respond and provide feedback and to visit our project webpage.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I had a question. On page 12, there's reference to an online survey, which sounds great. We've had good response from online surveys, but will the board have a chance to preview the draft survey before it goes out?
That's a good question. The survey has not been finalized. It would be a very quick turnaround. It will be, so we would post it we're planning to launch if we go forward on May 9th, and we would post it to our Let's Talk page.
Okay, if there is a chance to take a look at it, it would be great. Director Seegers.
Thank you. On page 2, no, sorry, page 8, number 2. I really like how you defined the problem in there. You've indicated all of our constraints and our issues, infrastructure, and not just to the Chapman water system, which is what a lot of people in the community focus on. Land use pressures as well. And then you've really done a good job on the roles and responsibilities. So people look to us and say, this is on you. You have to do this. But this actually lays out for them all the different agencies that we actually have to work with, and inside of their mandates and their, rules and rules and roles and everything else. So it's not, just drill a well and get it online. There's lots of work that has to go behind that. So I think, it's really comprehensive. So thank you for the work.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. On page 17, there's a comment that of delay in the development of several software applications, including improved customer. I went too far? Yes, you went too far. Oh.
I was just going to comment on the nifty chart on page 3 that shows, it was pointed out, it looks a bit like a coronavirus. That was maybe not the best comparison, but it does lay out from the internal SCRD point of view how water relates to all of the other services and plans that we have. So that was really helpful. Director Lee, do you have a page or that's in this report? Okay. Director Ties.
Yes, thank you. My question is whether Wasak is going to have a chance to have some input on this report as well as the next one, Annex B, before it goes to board. Thank you.
The next Wasak meeting is on May 3rd. So no, unless you refer it back to them. And this report we did not present the actual report. It did not go through Wasak, given that their monthly meeting, they meet every 2 months. But we discussed the water strategy with them before we finalized the discussion paper. We had a visioning session with them, and they had a chance to look at the more detailed engagement strategy.
Okay. I'm just wondering if maybe we can disseminate those 2 reports to them. It is a public agenda, so they could access it, but maybe just make them aware of it and see if they have any input before we go to board on it, just so that they feel like they've been included.
I see GM Rosenboom.
Thank you for the opportunity. Wasak has been heavily involved in the development of this report, and I'm strongly in favor of putting as a piece of information to their next committee meeting. Having them provide feedback on it prior to us initiating the engagement would significantly delay our engagement window. And we don't want to engage on a water strategy in the middle of the summer. I think that's not favorable for anybody. So currently the engagement is scheduled to happen in May and June. If we want Wasak's input, if we're seeking, if the board of the committee seeks Wasak's input prior to us engaging, it would actually result in a delay of the engagement, I think, until after the election.
Thank you.
Okay, I just
Follow
wanted
up?
to be sure. Yeah, sorry. Yes. I just wanted to make sure that they felt like their toes weren't stepped on, but sounds like they've been heavily involved, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. Will we, on the online public forum for the Let's Talk Water, will there be links to all of the past engagements and including like videos, the reports on our other pages that have resulted in where we are right now? Just for the historical and for the information piece for any residents that might not be aware.
Staff?
I would be happy to compile the past engagement, I guess, public engagement summaries. Not all of them are documented.
Thank you. Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm looking at I believe, what page are we on? Page 11. It's the proposed commitment statement. And as Anna, this is an opening offer as part of the public engagement, and so I guess I'm wondering is who would take the commitment statement? Is it the public who takes the commitment statement, or the regional district that takes the commitment statement? How does it factor into the water supplies? Is it the corporation? Is it, so I'm just, who's going to take this commitment statement? Thanks.
Staff?
I might need some clarification. When you say take it, do you mean who?
Yeah, who do we raise our hands and say we at the public engagement everyone supports this, or is the public going to decide on what it looks like? It's proposed, which suggests that there will be another one coming later, and so what and partly what is the intent of it? I think I understand, but a little bit more clarity around how is I don't like in the SCRD strategic plan. I don't think we have a commitment statement per se. So something like that. Thanks.
Okay. There are many ways to do strategic planning. The way that we've formulated the framework is that we've started with a commitment statement. It's almost like, what is our goal for the water strategy? And we actually started with a vision statement. And we went to Wasak and said, here's our vision statement. And they said, you know what? We think the community wants you to commit to something. So it's actually a much shorter, less flowery, less aspirational. It is just getting to the point of here's the purpose of the water strategy. We want to provide safe and reliable water, period. We will certainly put it out there for feedback. We want to know if this resonates with the community. Of course, we can make adjustments. And then I'll just go to the overall approach of developing the water strategy. We could have come out and said, here's our draft water strategy. What do you think? But we're not doing that. And this is a much longer process. So we're sort of coming out in pieces. So we're starting with the commitment statement, the guiding principles, which are going to direct how we formulate the actions the tactics themselves. But we don't have a draft list of tactics, but we have some ideas that we can present to the public, and we're accepting any ideas or any concerns that people have about some of the ideas that we're putting forward. And then we'll come back with an actual draft strategy that will have the commitment statement, and we'll adjust it if we receive feedback in a different direction. With the guiding principles, with the focus areas, and then with some actual tactics on paper. And some people will prefer to engage with a blank page, like the way that we're a semi-blank page, I guess, with some ideas out there in the framework. And then some people will be better at providing feedback when we actually have something on a page, which will come by 2023.
Thank you. I have a slightly thorny question I just wanted to ask. On page 11, there's reference to updates to the water system distribution model. And I'm just wondering, our water systems were designed on the assumption of having unlimited supply, and they were never designed to do things like ration water, if we ever had to do that. Are we looking at building more flexibility into our distribution system?
Thank you for the question. The analysis that that are going to be underway are primarily focused on making sure that we can meet the needs of the community in terms of fire flow, firefighting, as well as peak demands and average demands on a day and on a monthly basis. reducing the pressure in our system is actually not that big of a risk for the system. We can do it. It only means that the water will travel less far. So if we throttle our valves here at Selma Park, it might not end up in Elphinstone anymore. But we can, reducing the pressure in the system is not a risk in itself because most of it's gravity fed anyway.
Thank you. Director Ties.
Yeah, I was just looking at the challenges on page 9, and I'm wondering if the environmental flow needs requirement that was given to us in 2016 should be considered a challenge or not. Wondering what comments staff might have on that.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a regulatory requirement. Do we consider regulatory requirements to be a challenge? Yeah, sometimes they can be considered like that. We're currently working to lower it to a more, to get it lower. I think if there's a challenge associated with that, it's more staff capacity at the ministry than I think the actual number itself. Because I think the fact that, let's reframe this, the fact that I think that there is environmental flow needs in place to ensure that there is a healthy aquatic ecosystems. I'm not sure if the intent of the EFN, if that's considered to be a challenge.
Thank you. I'm looking for questions or possibly for a motion on recommendations on page 1. Aha, Director Hiltz.
I will move the recommendations as presented on page 1.
Seconder? Seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you very much. That was great. Good. And now to another exciting topic, best practices for water meter data. And that is over to Ms. Edbrook again, I assume. Thank you.
I'm going to pass it over to Jen. To
Thank
Ms.
you, Chair McMahon. Last year, the board requested staff to provide best practices, for water meter data based on other jurisdictions, particularly with a focus on managing high water use. In this report, a summary of 5 best practices is presented. These practices for using water meter data are best applied in combination to support a robust water meter program. Staff have also highlighted some of the work the SCRD will be taking on this year. This report confirms the SCRD's direction and outlines some of the board-approved initiatives staff are currently undertaking to improve the water meter program. Thank you, and staff welcome any questions.
Thank you. And while everybody's sitting looking like it's morning, I was just going to ask, how many other local governments in BC are using volumetric billing? Is this common? Is it new?
Oh gosh, I have a recent report with that number. I don't have that number top of mind. And it's a number that's increasing over time. I can say that much. I can get that to you.
Thank you. Questions, folks? Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at on page 15. It's the header is number 4. It's an improved water infrastructure management. And I guess what I'm looking for is where is the performance indicators, the metrics that will be used to report back to the board and to the community about the success and failures of the water system as being efficient. And so, and I will note that there was a SCRD report from 2017, which outlined a whole bunch of benchmarking, and I'm just wondering if there's a connection between now and then and presenting into the future. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. One of the benchmark values that's used in system performance is a percent loss. So that can be a value that we work towards calculating and determining, and then working to gain efficiencies over time on that value. So that's one that comes to mind. And we can go through, and as we build out our water models in terms of use and loss in the systems, define some additional criteria to go along with that.
And the follow-up would be in terms of the water strategy public outreach, is the public going to have an opportunity to weigh into what they think the benchmark should be in terms of, there's the technical and then there's what the public thinks. So is that going to be an option for them to suggest what benchmarks we should be looking at? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. So the water strategy is very much at the governance level, and that is the arena at which we really want to focus our public engagement. And I think what you're referring to is quite operational. But if you would like the SCRD to present a proposal back to the public, that is something that we could follow up with, especially when we're developing our action plans. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that, one, the water strategy is certainly not at that level. And then two, I think we just need to really separate the operational versus governance when it's coming to public participation and public engagement. And I really see public engagement as an opportunity to improve in terms of the proposals that we're putting forward. And I think that the framework and the discussion paper that's been laid out is, I think, with the guiding principles and the focus areas and the ideas, I think that will be a really good opportunity to seek public input.
Thank you. Director Seegers.
Thank you. It's interesting, yesterday at the Committee of the Whole in the District of Sechelt, we were talking about short-term rentals, and one of the questions at the end of the day was, are we going to be charging by volume for water? Because this person who asked the question lived next door or down the street from a short-term rental, and they know that that facility is using a lot more water. So when we told them that that was a conversation that was happening here, they went away happy, so it's good. They'll be in support of that. I wanted to look at page 16, number 2. So it indicates in there that water use data is stored internally. People have to register, or there's no web portal. So what's happening in this area? Obviously I don't have a water meter, so I don't use this. So it talks about the limits of my SCRD. So do we know what those issues are and what we need to address?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. We are in the process right now of getting our new meter reading software online, and having that software connect with our utility billing database. Once that data is in there, we can work within there to see how much of that we can display through my SCRD, and what in addition to that we desire. So we're not quite in the testing phase yet of being able to do that, but that's something that's happening over this quarter, most definitely. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yes,
what can I add to that?
That's
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. It'll be like going onto the hydro account and being able to look at all the historical data, I assume. Director Ties took his hand down. So then I had one other question here, and I have actually forgotten what it is. Director Lee.
Oh, I got it right this time, I think. On page 17, it mentions that there's a delay in the development of several software applications because of limited staff capacity. I wasn't aware that we were behind on delivering any of this software. Is there something we should be aware of based on that statement?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have a lot of items on the go in terms of our projects related to water meter database, customer relationship management tools, and working to get our new meter reading software and utility accounts speaking with each other. So within that, we've gone back, stepped back a bit, done a bit more project planning and prioritizing, and we're working with our information services group to align with the resources they have available to support those pieces, and been onboarding some new staff along the way too. So I think it's our initial timelines internally. We're looking at those again and just pushing some of those out a little bit. Yeah, sorry. You may want to add to that. Thanks.
The only piece that I'll add is it's that we put in budget proposals for specific pieces. So the software is called Neptune 360. So that is something that was requested I believe 2 years ago now. It's taken a long time for the implementation process. We are there. We're so excited. We're going to be moving into training very shortly. And that piece has held back the other pieces. And the other pieces are a customer relationship management tool, proper database, which we believe the Neptune 360 will answer some of those questions. And then there's a budget proposal for data analytics. Like all that stuff is going to follow now that we have this software in place. So we're definitely on the right track. And as Jen mentioned, we're working closely with information service.
Sorry, follow up?
Follow up, sure.
Yeah. I guess in what I'm concerned about is when we get Seashelt on board, we want to go full speed at that point. And I'm hoping that the software availability is not going to actually slow us down when that time comes. And so it's not a problem then. I can quit worrying. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Director, over to Ms. Edbrook.
Thank you for the question, and you're raising a very valid concern. I'll just add that the software pieces are really helping with automation. So it's not stopping us from doing this work. It's more about how we collect the data, how we store it, and then how we analyze it. And it's really bringing new improvements to how we interact with the public. But our current process isn't stopping us from providing water meter data to the two properties that do have a water meter. If anyone wants their water meter data, they can contact us. We're happy to provide them with the information, and then we do send out monthly emails.
Thank you.
Thank you. GM Rosenboom.
Thank you. Just to add, it's a corporate priority. All the software related to the metering program is considered to be a corporate priority. So, given within the scope of the limited resources of the infrastructure information services division at the moment, this is still considered to be one of their priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Ties.
Yeah, thanks. I've been waffling whether I should ask this question, but looking at number 5 on page 15, the pay-per-use billing, I think the biggest challenge around that is the rate structure review and how and who gets a say and how do we structure it. And so I'm just wondering if in your research on best practices, you've also had a look at some of the rate structures as well as some of the consultation that other regional districts have done around the rate structure review, or if that was beyond the scope of this work. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. So I'll add that I think the water strategy is a really good time for us to introduce this concept to the public and start to talk about it more publicly, because we do receive a lot of questions, similar to what Director Seegers was referring to, and we have so far received a lot of support, but we haven't talked to the broader public about volumetric billing. So I think about that as a potential tactic for the water strategy. I think that would be a really good way to cement that into the direction that the SCRD is going, under a focus area like water efficiency. As for public engagement, we did bring this to the Water Supply Advisory Committee, and the feedback we received from them was that developing the rate structure is very technical, and they didn't actually think that that was a topic that the SCRD should engage upon. But you were bringing up a good question. As far as I know, we have spoken to a few jurisdictions about their rate structures, but we haven't talked to them about their consultation process.
Thank you. Director Pratt.
Thank you. A couple of questions. With the reporting back to residents that have water meters, we currently have 450 that are subscribed out of 600, or 6,200 approximately, which is only a 7% uptick. So those are the ones that are getting that monthly data. Do we have the utility billing set out so that they get the stats on their yearly use at the utility billing or not? I'm sorry, I can't remember if we've done that or not.
Yeah, good question. At this point, there is no volume data connected to utility bills. The exception are the commercial accounts that pay the volumetric rate.
Okay. So I think part of the reason for doing water meters is also informing the public of what their actual water use is, forming each individual home. It's not just about us as the service providers knowing where everything is, but it's an information piece. So do we have it worked into the strategy about getting more people to sign up for the monthly billing? Because to me, it's, knowing what my household usage is, is key. Because if you don't know, and a lot of people don't understand that they can sign up for this. So I'm just wondering about our communication strategy around that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And we agree it's a really important piece in terms of awareness of water use and being able to change habits based on that information. We are putting some efforts into the invitation to sign up for that monthly water use update this spring. We have it out in the bulletin in our social media posts, included it in a mail out that went out this week to residents. So we do have it as a priority to increase those subscriptions over this year. Yes. Anything to add to that, Mia?
Just add briefly that for our water conservation communications plan, since you mentioned Director Pratt specifically about communications plan, it has been identified as a goal to increase subscriptions to the monthly water use update. And I hope that anyone that's listening in on this meeting, I hope that if you have a water meter that you're also subscribed. And I'll just do a quick pitch. You can email infrastructure@scrd.ca.
Thank you. I enjoy receiving my monthly water meter report. It's very interesting. I was kind of intrigued by the, metric that West Vancouver is using of 5 times your winter usage as being the maximum summer usage. Frankly, that seems like a lot of water. Because if I remember correctly, our winter usage average is somewhere around 300 liters a day per household. That would be 1,500 liters a day per household. That's a lot of water. Just curious if that's a common metric. It's nice to have a percentage or a goal there, but yeah, theirs is interesting. GM Rosenboom?
Thank you. I was indeed intrigued by the 5 times as well, because I know it's not actually 300, it's more towards 400 that the average is, so it will be about 2,000, and we're not getting that in here as our average summer use. And I think that's actually paramount to the level of water conservation that's already occurring within the community, that we're not, that 5 times is not what there's a few residencies, properties that are using 5 times the winter use, but on average that's not the case. So I think it's a sign of the level of water conservation and water awareness already within the community that we can do with less.
And just a follow-up question, so is there a metric on average, or is it per household? So I should use more winter water so that I can get a bigger summer usage? Just curious.
That would be an interesting strategy. Thank you for the question. They use that metric to identify households, so a per household metric, so they can have direct notification to those households. So those households would be outside of the average curve that we see here, and likely outside of West Vancouver's average curve as well. So it's that top end of peak use that happens during the summer season.
Thank you very much. It's probably their Olympic swimming pools. So I think we're done with this one. I see no further questions, so thank you very much. And that brings us to item 4 on our agenda, our favorite item, the water supply update. Over to GM Rosenboom.
Thank you. And I will share my screen and see if it works. It doesn't, because you see my... And now everybody knows the length of my password. It's a Dutch sentence, so I'm fine. So I'm going to put it in slide mode. Yes, there we go. So this is the first of several water supply updates that I will be providing over the next several months. And as part of these updates, I will also include a status update on not only on drought, but also on the Church Road project. I will start including that in every month. So where are we at? Snow surveys were completed early in the month. As usual, this year we were at Chapman just below average in terms of the amount of water that was contained in the snow, and the same was happening in Edwards. So not above average, just below it. And as you can see, last year we were a little above it. But I think last year was also a good example that the actual relevancy of the snowpack later in the season can be very limited, because last year we had a good snowpack and still we had significant drought later in the year. So snowpack is primarily relevant to for when we can expect drought to be initiated, but ultimately when that actually happens still is very dependent on factors like temperature. So in April, early April, we were just below average. Historically, our April 1st measurements are the highest, is the peak, and after that it goes down. However, as we all experienced in the last several days, it's still cold and snowing, even on the ground here. So there's still some snow being deposited at the lakes, which is good news. So we'll have to see what the next survey on May 1st will result in terms of snowpack. Currently, in terms of where we're heading, it's a slight La Nina influence, which is colder than usual weather. So, and I think that's what we're experiencing outside at the moment as well, which is only beneficial in terms of the onset of the snow melt. So this is the 1 month forecast by Environment Canada, and as you can see, it's blue, which means primarily blue, which means lower than normal temperatures. So the drought response plan for this year. As per the drought response plan, on May 1st, all systems will go to stage 1. And as of that date, also the new changes to the water conservation regulations will be implemented. So a summary of what they are. There will be no longer any permits for new lawns. Hand watering is now limited during stage 2 and 3 to the mornings and evenings instead of only mornings. We updated the definition for drip irrigation has been updated to actually ensure that it's only actually water efficient systems that qualify for that exemption. And there is a new 2-week exemption for farms paying immediate water rate in stage 4. So what are we doing to communicate this all? There is, I think I have one here, but there's a new chart produced. It's being mailed out as we speak. So watch your mailbox. It should be in there very shortly. And that information also has, as Ms. Callahan just informed the committee, a request to sign up for the monthly water use program we have. Our website is up to date. A news release was issued earlier. Tomorrow there will be a full-page ad in the Coast Reporter. We've been in contact with landscaping companies and developers on the fact that the lawn watering permits are no longer there for them to use. We received a tip to put signage up at green waste drop-off locations, as that's where a lot of the landscapers are going. So we put signs there, and we'll start a campaign at social media to, in line with what Director Brad was just saying, get ready for the summer. Even it's cold outside, it's good to start preparing. What are we doing in terms of our actually increasing our supply? As we all know, the Church Road Wellfield project is on the way. If you try to drive between North Road and Fisher over last week, you would have seen that there is some ground disturbance happening there, big time. So the work started, and between North and Payne, it will start this Monday. So on Monday night and Tuesday night, the intersection between North and Reed will be blocked off between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. because crews will do the intertie there. There will be traffic measure detours outlined. So and from that point onwards, they will start also working between North and Payne. They will move westwards as well. So there will be 2 crews working at the same time, one from Fisher to North and one from North to Payne. And at the same time, the work is starting at the treatment plant site itself in terms of the construction of the treatment facility there. Reed Road is single lane alternating traffic, and there are detours in place. We've completed the remaining archaeological testing, and it's now for advice to the Squamish Nation if there's any further work required, but that's not anticipated. And there were some letters to in the Coast Reporter requesting a path between North and Fisher. And yes, there will be a path constructed there, a gravel path 1.5 meters wide, and that was already part of the project. This was the real groundbreaking on earlier this week. This is the building on the, you can see it here, the building with the green roof. That's the current reservoir located on the corner between Elphinstone and Fisher. And the excavator is actually standing in the first picture right on top of where the new treatment facility is built. So this is the distribution, the transmission main that's being installed that will bring the water from this side all the way to the Reed Road pump station. And on the right picture, that's a picture earlier this week where you can still see the alignment where ultimately the asphalt was cut open to put the pipes in. So things are happening and big time, which is great to see. How we're doing with the other projects? Langdale well filter project, the drilling and testing of the future production wells will start shortly. We're waiting our final approval there in terms of archaeology. Subsequently, we'll do, based on the results of the testing, we'll start working on the preliminary design and the documents related to the water license application. And we're still doing some baseline monitoring on Langdale Creek so that we can determine if there will be any impacts expected from this project on the flows in that creek. For Grey Creek water treatment upgrade, we awarded the contract for 2 years of monitoring of the flows, especially during the summer season, to confirm if we expected the impact of climate change would actually allow us to draw a lot of water from that creek moving forward, so that we're not building a new treatment facility there and then finding out 5 years later that there is no water anymore in the creek. Water reservoir, we're awaiting our final approval from the ministry to get geotechnical drilling underway at Site B, which is on the east side of Chapman Creek, just above or just beside the gun range, the shooting range here. The work is scheduled for the summer, so more results to come on that later this year. And Marianne West, the monitoring plan development has not been initiated yet, to come later this year as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Director Pratt.
Thank you, Chair. For the chart of water conservation guidelines, is it dated at all? Do we have a year on it? Because I worry that sometimes people have the old one hanging around as we've updated it from year to year.
I can answer that. It doesn't have 2022 printed on it. It does have on the reverse side new regulations for 2022. So there is a bit of a prompt in terms of it applying to this year onwards. So I hope that supports people's transition into this new year. Thanks.
Great. Any, Director Hiltz?
Thanks, Chair. The snowpack data, as you say, it doesn't really tell us what we're going to get into later on in the year, but it does provide data on it seems more like on a watershed basis. So does the SCRD share that data with ministries, academics who are looking at watershed kind of analysis, because the snow goes into the creek, which affects the environmental flows, and there's a lot more than just us drawing water out relying on the snowpack. The nature relies on that snowpack. So is there anything that the SCRD does with the data other than its own internal use? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. We know that there is a network of research institutions that are actually using the monitoring station at Mount Steele, because that's on a daily basis. That's monitoring on a daily basis. We use that as well, and but this is really focused on the lakes itself, and because of the elevation difference, there are sometimes, especially in the spring, there are some differences where at Mount Steele there might be still snow and at the lakes not anymore. So that's why we still need that underground verification at the lakes. But they are aware of the fact that we have the data, and we've been sharing some of that occasionally with those institutions.
Great. Thank you very much. Always an interesting update. And I think you answered our questions. So, excellent. Then we can move on to number 5, landfill disposal ban for food waste and recycling proposed amendment of timeline. And that would be over to Ms. Port.
Thank you, Chair McMahon. A new landfill disposal ban for food waste, food soil paper, and paper was approved by the SCRD board in January 2021 and commenced in January 2022. Enforcement of the ban is scheduled to begin on July 1st. This report proposes amending the timeline for enforcement to October 1st, 2022. The amended timeline accounts for reduced staff capacity in key positions and will allow sufficient time for education and outreach, development of new landfill procedures, and implementing an operational solution for food waste drop-off and processing in Area A.
Thank you. Directors, do we have questions? Director Seegers.
Thank you. On page, sorry, other mouse. On page 20, in the recommendation, the second last, well, the last and that, I guess, staff investigate how other jurisdictions monitor compliance, including potential use of clear garbage bags. Where are we at with that piece?
Thank you for the question. We are going to initiate outreach and the current plan is to begin that outreach in June. And following that, we'll come back to the board with a summary report.
Thank you. And I had a question, which was the commercial food waste, where is this primarily coming from? Is it grocery stores, restaurants, what? And what are we going to be doing about reaching out to those businesses?
I'm going to let GM Rosenboom answer that.
Thank you for the question. There are restaurants, grocery stores are indeed big ones. Hospital is, and care facilities are big ones as well. What is currently being deposited at the landfill will actually be confirmed as well during the waste composition study that will be undertaken in May, where at the landfill residential garbage as well as commercial garbage will be researched to find out what kind of materials is inside, and that same study will be completed this fall after the implementation of the ban, so that we can actually hope that we are able to identify that we can actually see the drop in organic material being delivered to the landfill.
Thank you very much. Director Beamish.
Yes, I guess I didn't hear a clear answer to the question that Director Seegers asked, and that was where are we with regards to looking how other jurisdictions monitor compliance, including potential use of garbage bags. That's not an outreach issue as per defined in education outreach on page 21. It's more of a research issue of what's happening elsewhere.
Thank you for that question. We provided the board with a report last year, December, on that item.
Oh, okay.
And the follow-up on that was that we were to do a survey. So that's the only, we already implemented this recommendation, and the follow-up recommendation was the survey, and that's currently being developed.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Pratt.
Thanks, Chair. I have to say it's, I'd rather see the ban sooner than later, and I understand the the issues around vacancies, and I'm very happy to see that we have Ms. Port back in our fold, because she's got fantastic history with our organization. I'm wondering about the implications then of doing a soft ban starting July 1st and a full implementation as of October 1st. So maybe that we're not using it as part of our information strategy, so that on October 1st, it's kind of like the let them see us coming, and really starting with that very focused look. This is happening October 1st. This is your grace period right now. I'm just curious about staff comment on that.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. That's indeed the plan of what we're planning to do, is to ensure that all the haulers and everybody that's providing materials to the landfill prior to October 1st can be informed through flyers and other conversations we have with them, so that they can make their adjustments. A letter to, for example, the primary haulers on the coast will go out soon after the board has approved any recommendation, and so next steps will be taken after that. But one of the components is that we feel that it is appropriate for it to be a success that, for example, businesses have the opportunity to change their service arrangements with those haulers. So the haulers are aware. We phoned them all already a year ago that this was coming. So we're following up with them so that they can work with their customers to make sure that new contracts are in place, etc.
Great. Thank you. Director Tice.
Yeah, I just want to report a little bit of the situation I'm going through right now. At Scrd Cove Marina, you may be aware that we have dumpsters there that are accessible to the public because we accept garbage from Thormanby, and of course not everybody is as diligent as they should be. I've added cameras, and now I'm adding signage to ensure that people are going to do the right thing, but in the end, there's not much I can do to really comply people to actually follow the rules. So just wondering how that kind of enforcement and then how is that all going to be regulated in the end when those kind of situations exist? Just some food for thought. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. That is one of the reasons why there's a 5% allowance on a volume based, because it is recognized that especially in more public settings like the ones you're talking about, there will be occasions where organic waste will be entering the garbage stream. That's unavoidable. But it's how to minimize it and trying to provide alternatives.
Thank you. Director Seegers.
Thank you. Have you been in communication with the other jurisdictions on the Sunshine Coast? Because, what Director Ties was talking about is something that we have to deal with in the District of Sechelt. I mean, Long Davis Bay, we've got garbage bins, etc., but we don't have separation. I know that some of the areas that we've been over the last little while, we do see that there are a number of bins. There's one for garbage, there's one for organics, right? There's one for paper, etc. We don't have those, and that would be something that we'd have to plan for. I don't know if that conversation has been had with our staff. So have you been reaching out so that we can do our part as well?
Yes, we have, and we'll continue.
Super. Seeing no more questions, I'm hoping for a motion based on page 20. Director Seegers.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation as on page 20.
And I see a seconder. Thank you. Any further questions, conversation? No? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Brilliant. That passes. Thank you very much. And now we are going to a contract award for gypsum recycling services. And that is Mr. Rosenboom?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair McMahon. The SRD accepts drywall for recycling at both our disposal facilities in Pender and here in Sechelt, and all the drywall received will go to the only drywall recycling facility in BC, which is actually located in Vancouver. Almost all of the drywall will ultimately end up being new drywall or being used as paper. While the SRD has been bringing its drywall to this facility for many years, it's never entered into a long-term agreement with this company. Entering into the proposed 3-year contract with New West Gypsum would result in the current practice to align with the procurement policy we have in place and to create certainty about the rates for the next several years. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions about gypsum? Director Seegers.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the recommendations on page 23.
And I see a second. Thank you very much. No questions about gypsum? In that case, calling the question, all in favor? Great, everybody's in favor, nobody's opposed, so thank you very much, that passes. And the only other thing on our agenda, on the open agenda, is the Wasak committee meeting minutes. Does anybody have anything from those minutes that you want to raise? Because otherwise, we will be moving to the in-camera portion of the agenda. And so I'm looking for a motion that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with Section 91A and K of the Community Charter. Personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality, etc. That's moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you, that passes. Before we go in camera, are there any questions from our empty audience? I'm thinking not. Right, does anybody want a 5-minute break before we go in camera, or do we want to go straight into it? 5. Okay, we'll be back at 10:40. into the regular meeting. Look at that. We're back already. So, welcome back to the Thursday, April 14th Infrastructure Services Committee agenda, and I will look to a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.